Welcome to the Imperfect Dads Podcast. This is your host, Devin. We believe dads care deeply about their family and kids, but they don't always have a space to discuss what their life looks like. Our podcast is a space for dads to discuss the ups and downs of fatherhood and how they feel like they're holding it together or how they're not. Thank you for joining us for this episode. This podcast is part of the Never a Face Network. Make sure to follow them on Instagram or go to the website neverafacenetwork.com. On this episode, we have an author, Patton Dodd. We talked about his kids getting older and now being a plane flight away, life in Texas, and his day job helping families. Most of this conversation, though, is about his new book, The Father You Get. Patton had a very difficult relationship with his dad. His dad made his family move a lot, burned a lot of bridges, and Patton wrote this book about their relationship. Patton was pretty honest about the journey of trying to learn about his father when he had distanced himself from him for so long. And I also talked to Patton about the toll writing a book like this took on him and the exhaustion of doing the audiobook. This conversation isn't all heavy because there's lots of life lessons he learned about fatherhood from this journey, but I do sincerely really appreciate Patton letting me into his mental space to discuss a book he never thought he'd write. And also just like one more thing.
Dad, just start the episode.
Oh, my bad. So, hey, welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Dads Podcast. This episode's guest is Patton. Patton, welcome to the episode.
Hello. Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes. And so normally easiest first question to ask is how many kids do you have? Ages, all that good stuff.
I have three. They are 22, 18, and 15.
Man, how's it feel? Is your oldest out of college yet? Or are they in the middle of college?
So they're girl, boy, girl. My oldest she graduated from college in May and went right into graduate school. So she's back in school. And then my son is 18. He also graduated from high school in May. And went to college, and one went like we're in San Antonio, one went to Oregon, and one went to upstate New York. So they're like as far away as they can possibly get from us.
Do you like Oregon and upstate New York? Were you like pushing it? Like, you know what? I'm really looking to get more into.
I was not looking to travel or spend money or do any of those things.
You don't want a 5-hour plane flight to see your kids? That's not exciting.
I just got back from Portland on Sunday, and yeah, man, it's actually like a 12-hour day because of the flights and time change and then finding a direct flight means driving from San Antonio to Austin. Anyway, they both live like in complicated places for us in terms of seeing them. I saw my son last weekend. I hadn't seen them since August, which is the longest stretch ever gone without seeing my boy. And, it'll probably be once a year that we can do that. Yeah. It's expensive. So, yeah.
It is.
It's a drag.
It is. Have you figured out like holiday stuff? I feel like because I live out in Denver. My parents live in Southern Indiana. My in-laws live in like Virginia. And it is now it's a discussion to see each other. Before it'd just be like, all right, I'm going to drive 2 hours, I'm going to drive whatever, and I'll be fine. Now it's like, all right, it's June. What are we doing for the holidays? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's what happens when you live a 12-hour day of traveling away.
Yep. We have to plan and we have to save. I started a savings account, chipping away a little bit at a time because I know that a couple times a year we're going to need plane tickets. And we haven't, my daughter was in Santa Fe, New Mexico for 4 years. That was drivable. It's 12 hours of driving, but it was drivable. Not 12, 10 and a half, 11. But anyway, and for short trips where it made more sense to fly, it's still like small airport in San Antonio, small airport in Santa Fe or Albuquerque. It was just a pain. So it's a lot of planning. We actually haven't had a family Thanksgiving with everybody at home since like 2022, I think. And then we're doing it this year. Finally, we're pulling it off. So I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's, I'm the youngest of three. My wife is the youngest of three. I now understand like the purpose of like family reunions and things like that. Yeah. Because it is so like, all right, when can we be back in that area? When can my sister be back in that area? When can my brother be back in that area? And that's just one example of the family. That's not even my wife's side of the family. So it's an aspect of getting older I didn't anticipate to have to deal with, I guess, to be like, oh, when do I see all my family members? Hopefully a holiday. I don't know. Can you travel this year? We'll see.
Yes. Yep. That's where we are. I think this is the rest of our lives, planning and saving to see each other.
Pretty much. Yep. That's what, whenever we moved out here like a year ago, and we just accepted that of like, all right, financially, this means we have to start saving for travel. And like before, it wasn't a budget item. Now it's a budget item. every single
Right.
year. It's great.
Yep. Yep. And a budget item like a utility, not like a vacation you're
Hmm.
saving for. It's just like a
No,
function of your
no,
life. Yeah.
correct. Unless you don't
Yes.
want to see your family members. The other option is just not seeing your son or
Right.
daughter. And you're like, that's not the type of parent I want to be.
So far, that's not the option for us. We want as much of them as we can get.
That's great. What about for your youngest is a daughter also, right?
Yeah, she's 15, sophomore in high school. Yeah.
Cool.
So
Has
we have
she started? Are you already starting to plant the seed to be like, here are the schools in Texas within a 2-hour
all the
drive
time.
that you would love?
100%. I mean, I did that with both of my first two kids either. And you see how that worked out.
Right.
But yes, we talk about that all the time. I mean, to be honest, like it financially, it's like in-state tuition in Texas is not all that affordable.
Okay.
And if you go to liberal arts schools where you get a lot of scholarship support, it's basically in-state tuition rates is what our kids have ended up paying. But nonetheless, there's the travel stuff we're talking about. And yeah, I mean, I want her home. Like if she can wrap her head around staying in Texas, that would definitely be the most desirable thing. The thing that I've been in San Antonio for 10 years. And one of the first things that I remember learning about this area is that everyone, I mean, this is probably true of a lot of kind of places in America, but people are like dying to leave when they're in high school.
Mhm.
But then they all come back. I know so many people here who, like peers of mine, who thought they would never come back after high school. And then they were drawn back, whether it's by jobs or family, or there's just some charm actually about South Texas that people don't really know about unless you're from here, and it woos you back in. And so, yeah, 30s, 40s, people have drifted back to this area. I have so many friends for whom that is their story, and maybe that'll be my kid's story too. So I'm not sweating it too much because I do think we're not done. Like we're definitely not done with our relationships, and maybe we're not done living near each other either.
Perfect. Where are you originally from? Are you originally from Texas at all?
No, I'm from all over. I was born in Nashville, grew up in Tennessee, Alabama, spent a lot of time in Mississippi as a kid. And then when we moved to California, Colorado, I was in Oklahoma, Boston, Maryland. We moved here when I was 40. And, this might be home for the rest of our lives. I don't know. We'll see.
Nice. What made you move so much as a kid? Was it like your parents' jobs or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I've just written this memoir about fatherhood, and this is actually the first story that I tell in this book.
Cool.
Is about like how to answer this question, where are you from? Because it's always been a struggle for me to answer this question because it's kind of a, I went to 6 different schools my first 7 years of school.
Dude.
And a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, yeah, military family. And I'm like,
first thought.
No, not that. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the issue was my dad was a mess and he couldn't hold down a job. He was an alcoholic. He would drink his way out of jobs and burn bridges and then run. And we would be, he would run with us in tow. And so he was always trying to kind of build a bridge to some fresh start, none of which ever worked out. So it's like some people are like, where are you from? Or why did you ask, why did you move so much when you were a kid? It's like, do you really want me to answer this question?
Yeah.
Like on this podcast, it's fine, but like at a cocktail party. Yeah.
Oh no, you're like at bus pickup or something like that. And something
right,
like, so
exactly.
I'm from all over. Oh, military family. Undiagnosed things with my father, actually.
Exactly.
But my name's Patton, by the way.
Yes, exactly. That's how my book opens. I tell this story of throwing a goodbye party for a friend of mine in 2018. And like, I talk about how we're setting up this bar, people are coming in and I'm trying to get everything set for my friend. And someone introduces himself and asks that question. And then we have this exchange that you and I have just had. But for some reason that night, I burst into tears when I started talking about it, which I hadn't even felt troubled by my upbringing for years at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I realized as I was crying in front of this poor stranger who was feeling super awkward, maybe I have some stuff I need to explore and work on, regarding my dad. So yeah, that's kind of how the story begins.
That's fair. Have you ever read The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls?
Yes.
Okay, cool. You saying like moved a lot.
I know.
Dad was the man. Like that story is very much that of she did a great job telling that story from her eyes as a child of like, we have to move again. I don't know. My dad just told me it's a great new adventure and here we go.
Yes.
And as an adult, you're like, your dad needed some help and some
Yeah.
stability that he was unwilling to admit he needed. And he's a great salesman to spin it that way too. So that's impressive.
Yes, yes. I had some of that. I relate
Yeah.
to that story. And yeah, I've had many readers since this book came out like a month and a half ago. And I've had,
Okay.
a number of people be like, this reminded me of The Great Castle. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe not all the way through, but that aspect of
Yeah.
it, there's
Yeah.
definitely overlap.
Yes. Well, I mean, because like I think one thing that's always fascinating to me about being a dad, or what I feel like one of the most like unspoken weights of parenthood is that you get to define what normal is for your children at all
Uh-huh. No
times.
kidding. Yes.
And that's what your normal was growing up, what my normal was growing up is completely different. And what that,
Yeah.
once you become an adult and you can actually analyze, like, why did I ever consider this normal? This was not a normal
Right.
thing to happen, is a fascinating journey therapists can really help you with.
That's right. We are all frogs in boiling water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just is our normal environment. I guess we're not all frogs in boiling water. Some of us are raised in healthier environments. I hope my kids are
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
that, for
Right. Yeah.
instance. But yeah, no, you're right. You don't know any different.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I remember first getting to know other families in a significant way when we finally settled enough that I was like
Hmm.
developing relationships. And again, some of those families were obviously messy as well, but the ones that were seemed solid and intact to me were super fascinating to me because they were so. I had a friend named Carlos in high school, and man, I felt like this home was just like, I don't know, it was like something out of a Spielberg movie or maybe a Ron Howard movie. It just felt
Hmm.
so like positive and good
Yeah. Yeah.
and nice to be around. You know what I mean? Everyone hanging out, talking. Parents felt stable. Of course, there was more going on there, of course, as
Hmm.
there is with
Yeah.
most families.
Always.
I
Yeah.
learned later it wasn't Ozzy and Harriet. But yeah, in any event, you're right. We define normal for our kids for better or worse.
Yep. Yeah. And even like that's not even to make it with like a negative connotation, but even something as simple like my parents both smoked growing up, like all the time. And like then I'll talk to people who
Yeah.
didn't deal with that. And I'm like, oh, you didn't feel a need to like I would come home from college and my parents still smoked. And I'd be like, I would hold off to wash my clothes at home because I would just wash them in a smoke filled house and then they would smell like smoke whenever I was done. Like little things like that. And I'm like, oh, that was just normal because I don't smoke. I've never smoked. And whenever people come in, it's like, oh, do you smoke? And I'm like, no, why do you smell like it? Then it's like, I just rather avoid that entire moment. And other people like, I just went home and did whatever. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's fine. That's cool. It is what it is. Coping
Yeah.
mechanisms are fun, I guess.
Yes. Hey, how many kids do you have, Devin?
I have three. So I have a 9-year-old daughter, 7-year-old daughter, and 4-year-old son.
Okay. So you're in the thick of it. You've been at it for a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm also a stay-at-home parent is my, full-time gig. My wife works full-time. So the two older ones are in like fourth and second grade, and then my youngest is like half day pre-K. So like in the morning, I try to do errands efficiently because he only does like 3 hours of pre-K, and then I'll just hang out with them in the afternoon until the bus comes to with the girls on it. So that's just holding down the fort is kind of a lot of the days whenever you're a stay-at-home parent. It's like, all right, offer stability, try to keep things cool and calm as much as you can, and lucky to be able to do it. Honestly,
Yeah, no kidding. That's awesome. The way you're defining normal for your kids, I don't know. That phrase
yeah,
seems more pronounced now that I know that about you. Like you doing
yeah.
that in a bigger way than a lot of dads either have an opportunity to, maybe
Hmm.
a desire to, or yeah, has that been true for many years?
Yes, I've been doing this since 2019.
Okay.
We lived in Nashville at the time, and we had our second kid. We both worked full time. And at about the year mark of two kids and two separate daycares, and it costing basically the same amount as our mortgage, it was kind of like, all right, what are we doing? Like this isn't that fun. My wife has always been, I don't know how else to put it. She's always been better at careers than I've been. Like just in
Yeah.
general, she's the person who like gets into a role, makes it better, makes everything more efficient, and then elevates it. So people are like, here's more money and a better title. Whereas I'm more snarky and run my mouth a lot. So, I get stuff done, but but yeah, so whenever that happened, after a year of paying that much for daycare and just the stress of like kids in daycare, man, it's you never know. Like I feel like you live in constant anxiety of am I going to get the call like in this meeting of, hey, by the way, your kid has a slight fever, so you got to go get them. And
Hmm.
just my wife and I never have the conversation anymore who takes care of the kids. Like if a kid is sick, a kid needs something during the school day or anything like that, I'm the answer. And I am not putting a price tag on the value of that, because
Heck
it makes
yeah.
our lives so much calmer. And I always tell my wife, like, hey, if your job is ever too much, like if there's a moment in which like the stress of all of this, the weight of how much money you have to make to like sustain our life is too much, like this talk, like I'll go back to work. I just started to be grateful that I can be able to do this at all, and never be like, well, I should be able to. Like no ego, just like, hey, if this works, it works. And if there's a moment in which you are like, hey, I'm tired of all this stress and anxiety of what
Yeah.
this having a job that pays that much to pay for a family of 5, then let's talk about it and let's switch things up.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. I worked from home for a long time in my career. So
Okay.
I wasn't, I was not a stay-at-home dad in the sense of being able to be present to them full time. But I did have like around the edges of the days, it was easier to be, longer breakfasts,
Uh-huh.
maybe to and from school, helping with lunch, that kind of thing. So I got a little taste of what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Just being
Yeah.
able to be around. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's mostly like, it feels like you're like on call, basically. Cause like it's like you get involved with things, but not super involved with things. Cause it's kind of like, all right, I'm gonna go on a walk, I'm gonna exercise or something like that. With the knowledge of I might get called out for something, or be like, hey, by the way, your kid needs blah, blah, blah. You forgot to do this. So it's just like, oh, cool. I'm gonna keep my day like loosely structured at all times, because like I never know. You wake up some days and your kid threw up overnight and you're like, okay, cool. I guess you're staying home today. So I'm good with loose plans and like a
Hmm.
framework, as opposed to like, I need to do this at this time. I'm not, it doesn't feel flattering to say I'm not the most structured person, but I'm okay with a lack of structure.
Yeah. Well, your kids provide, I'm sure, enough structure
Yes.
for you, right? Maybe more than
Yeah,
you
they
want.
do. Yeah. Yes. But I'm not like I'm not like, okay, you get home, you need to read books. Like, I don't do that. I'm
Sure.
just like, hey, you just got done from school. Do you guys need a snack? What are you doing? And if they're like, we want to get on a screen, we want to watch something, I'm like, cool, let's check your homework. Maybe you read a book first. Like, let's do something that's a guarantee of not just straight up entertainment
Yeah.
before I throw entertainment at you. So
Yeah. Right on. That makes sense. You sound like a good dad, Devin.
I am trying as best as I can. I'll actually ask you this question. This could be an interesting question for you to answer. Whenever I hear that statement of good dad, are you a good dad? My first thought is like, I don't think I should be able to answer that, because I'm not like the subject matter. Like my kids are the
Yep.
ones who decide that. I feel like you live
Correct.
within what you determine to be your integrity, and you hope that means you're a good dad. But ultimately, when my kids
Hmm.
are in their 20s and 30s, I'll find out if I did a decent job at this, or what I need to correct,
Yeah.
what I need to like apologize for. If someone says, Patton, I think you're a good dad, what's your initial response to that? What does your mental space do to that sentiment or question?
Um, Before I answer your question, can I make an observation? I just want to
Please do. Yes.
underline what you were saying, because I think it's so smart and right that you're
Thanks.
not the one who gets to decide if you're a good
I
dad.
don't. I don't get to
Like
decide that, man. I wish I did.
like your community might, but ultimately, obviously, your kids will.
Yeah.
I mentioned this memoir that I wrote called "The Father You Get,"
Yeah.
and it's structured around my dad, and then father figures, and then the idea of God the Father. But that's mostly me telling my mom's story and her story of faith, and then finally becoming a father. And when I get to the becoming a father part of the book, I tell a story about how a friend of mine named Tara told me, and I had been telling Tara I haven't written the part of the book yet about being a dad. I don't know how to do it. I'm kind of like, I'm having writer's block. How do I write
Hmm.
about my own kids, like in a way that's fair and true? And she said to me, what you've been doing the last couple of years, you've been working on this, trying to write about your father, writing about your mom and her death. She said, it's kind of been in fulfillment of one of the 10 Commandments: honor your father and your mother.
Hmm.
And she said, but the word honor, like in the ancient Hebrew,
Huh?
isn't like, the way we think about it. It's more about like weighing rightly, like on old scales of
Yeah.
justice. How do you like hold
Yeah.
the weight of a person and who they were and are rightly? And she said, that's what kids do for their parents, but like you don't get to weigh your kids rightly. You don't get to be the one who tells us who they are, who and what they are. Like they
Hmm.
will do that for you. And that was a kind of a
That's cool.
breakthrough for me, and a
Yeah.
paradigm shift
Yeah.
that like they will all weigh us someday. And so
Hmm.
yeah, to answer your question, like when
Yeah.
someone tells me, I was at a book event the other night, and people at this book event were asking me, I talk about a lot of crappy stuff my dad did in this book. And people say, like, how you've come through that, you're clearly an engaged father. Like, how do you think about your own fatherhood? And my son was there at this event, and I was like, this feels weird to say in front of my son, but I've never probably said these words out loud before, but I'm going to say it here. I think I'm a good dad. I do think I'm a good dad. And I told my son that night, I was like, Henry, you can refute this. Like, you have no pressure. Like, you don't have to agree with me. I'm not even going to ask you to speak, but you hold your own mind. But what I do know is that I'm in keeping with what we were talking about earlier, I'm a present father. Like, I've tried to be present, not all the time and not perfectly. I've certainly had plenty of times when I've been distracted or preoccupied and not prioritized them. But on the whole, over the years, I think I have chosen and will continue to choose presence. And to me, that's like, I don't know, some 90 something percent of what it means to be a good dad is just to be present, available, emotionally available, intellectually available, like physically there as much as you can be, if that's possible. And I am dedicated to that, and I've chosen presence over other desires I might have plenty of times, right?
Yeah.
And so, in as much as that's what it means to be a good dad, I think I'm that, or at least intending to be that.
Yeah, I really do think it's a lot of like defining what characteristics, like, because whenever your kids, because I know there'll be a moment in which, my kids are in their like 30s or so, and they're asking me questions about their childhood and what my wife and I did with raising them. And like, the only thing I'll know to do is be like, hey, at that moment, I did what I thought was best. So I'm like, okay, man, put in the work to make sure you actually know what you think is best, because you can autopilot what you think is best real easily. So
that's right.
Try to be, to me, that's what presence means. It's like, was I actually thinking through my decisions? Was I actually thinking through what I was doing? And if that answer is yes, then one thing I've told dads before that always feels harsh, but I think is true. You have to be comfortable as a parent with the knowledge that your best still causes damage. You're not doing anything maliciously to hurt your kids. What you thought the best version of you might still not be good enough for what their needs were, because you have deficiencies and you have limits to what you can do. And being comfortable with, like, I did my best, your best wasn't enough, is kind of a reality you have to face whenever you're a parent, or you build a bunch of walls against your kids. That's what I feel like I found is that's kind of how it tends to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And also, you're learning as you go, right? With every
Correct.
kid
Yeah.
is like, I think I've joked, this is not fair at all. It's sort of awful, but I've joked about how, my oldest kid was our first draft. You know what I mean?
Test pancake. Yep.
Yeah. Well, for sure. Exactly. I sort of hate and love that joke. I hate it, but you definitely are learning as you go. You're definitely picking up skills and getting better at it. We should all have 10 kids. That 10th kid is going to be amazing.
They're going to be great if I remember where they are and their name.
Right.
Well, because I had a friend tell me that, because he had, I think, 5 or 6 kids whenever I knew him. And I would always be like, oh, it's like, whatever, talking to me. He's like, yeah, but no matter what, my oldest is still the first time I've ever had a kid be that age. Like, sure, I've had a lot of newborns. Sure, I've had toddlers, whatever. Whenever my oldest turns 10, that's still the first time I've ever had a kid turn 10.
That's right.
Like, your oldest daughter is still the first time you've had a kid graduate college and go to grad school.
Correct.
And you're like, oh, how am I helpful and loving as my daughter goes through grad school this far away? And that's now your journey to figure out for one of your kids, not even the other 2.
That's right. That's super perceptive. It's funny that you're saying that, because what you're describing is something that I just got clear on, like, in the last few years. I think it was in writing this book that helped me get clear on it. So the fact that you know this now, like, maybe you are super dad. Like, that's a great insight.
There's still a lot of practice, and I just try to hold everything loosely with whenever my oldest daughter goes to college, I'm still going to be a wreck. I'm still going to be way too emotionally close to the situation. I can talk about what you should do for your kids all day, not what I should do for my kids.
Well, at least you've got the concepts, man. A conceptual framework is part of the battle, and
it's helpful.
I feel my way through, with like emotions and sweat and anxiety. So having that, because it's true. I feel like I learn things the first time I have a kid who is at X stage, like you described, but then I'm able to apply that lesson to the next kid, if indeed I learn. Now, I don't think all parents learn. Some parents are not bothering to obtain and absorb those lessons.
Which is why there's good therapists, because that's
right. That's right.
What do you do for a living? Like, what's your day job? What's your like 9 to 5? All that.
So I am, my title is executive director. I have a weird title. It's executive
Okay.
director of storytelling and communications at an organization that also has kind of a weird name, the H.E. Butt Foundation in Texas. Everyone, right.
Yeah, I'm
That's
sorry. I had
the,
to giggle. I
yeah,
have
right.
small kids. That's what I'll blame it on. Yeah, yeah.
We are all a small kid inside, and everyone in Texas, or most everyone, shops at a grocery company called HEB. And that
Okay.
same family started a foundation, a family foundation in the 1930s that I work for. And
Okay.
we're not part of the grocery company anymore. The foundation is an independent operation, but and it runs, it's what's called an operating foundation, which means it doesn't like make grants the way foundations normally do. We create and operate our own programs. So it's kind of like a collection of nonprofits that we oversee. And I oversee comms and branding and messaging for them generally. But I also run one of the programs, which is a storytelling program. That's the storytelling part of my title.
Okay.
We have a public storytelling initiative about poverty and inequality in San Antonio. So we like make media, documentaries, and
Okay.
written articles and photography about these issues. And then, but mostly we host people. We host gatherings where we tell stories or host people telling stories about kind of economic hardship issues.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I do. I love it. It's a great
Cool.
gig.
Nice. Have you? Okay, I'm gonna ask one more book. Have you ever read any Matthew Desmond books like Poverty by America or Evicted?
Yeah, oh yes. I mean, I love
Okay. Cool.
Desmond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Evicted was a big
He
deal
writes.
for me. Yeah.
Yes.
And Poverty by
Yeah.
America is the book I recommend the most to people these days.
Okay. Cool.
I've
Yeah.
read it twice. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. My wife got. So we lived in Nashville for 18 years before we moved out here. And my wife got, whenever he did Poverty by America, my wife got to go to his like she went to Parnassus to go watch him speak on the book, and just left like
Wow.
inspired, ready to like be like, how do I help every citizen? He just seems like
Yeah.
the very
Yeah.
smart, very analytical, has so much data to support everything he says, but also
Yeah.
human at the same time.
Yeah,
In a
for
way in
sure.
which I'm just like, how are you this analytical and human? Usually you're one or the other. And it's just, I'm always intrigued to see his name. If it's like he's writing a new book, I'm like, I will pre-order it. What do I need to do?
Same. Same. I will read what he writes for the rest of his life.
Tell me about what made you want to write this book and how you came about writing this book.
Yeah, so I actually pitched a different book in the early days of COVID. I pitched I've been a writer for a long time. I was a journalist for a number of years. So I've kind of worked up book ideas over the years, and some of them have worked and some of them haven't. But in the early days of COVID, I pitched a book about my favorite movie, which is It's a Wonderful Life. I pitched a book
Okay.
called It's a Wonderful Book, which is I think a good idea for a book about the kind of cultural history and impact of that film, which I think is like oddly underrated, even though it's beloved. And so 21 publishers rejected it. So it did not sell. It didn't
Ouch.
work. I got great rejection letters from editors saying, we love this idea,
Yeah.
but holiday books don't sell and film books don't sell. So you're kind of doubly screwed. But one editor reached out and said, we want to talk to you. And it was a woman that I knew. Her name was Lil Copan. And I had met her, many years before. We'd had a few interactions over the years. And she said, look, we can't do this It's a Wonderful Life book. But she reminded me like 10, 12 years ago in a bar in Philadelphia at a conference, you pitched to me a fatherhood memoir. You told me an idea for a concept about, a memoir about fatherhood that you were going to write someday. And if you still want to write that book, that's one I'd be interested in taking a look at.
Okay.
So I was kind of crushed actually when she said that, because I had not really thought about it. I mean, I had thought about it, but I had done nothing with it. I wasn't planning on doing anything with it because I hated thinking about my dad.
Of
Like
course.
I didn't like, he died in 2007. So it had been a long time, but I still didn't like sitting with his memory. And so I remember feeling like my heart sank when she said that. Like that's not the book I want to write. But like the next weekend I was on a run, and while I was running, like just the idea for the first chapter kind of like fell into my lap, and I went home and I wrote a few thousand words that day and sent them to her. And she was like, yeah, man, let's do this book. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it kind of came together. I think that I needed to write it. You know what I mean? I think maybe I was kind of destined to write it. If this gracious editor pulled it out of me,
Yeah.
the truth is, once I signed the contract, which is like January 2021, I regretted it like almost immediately. And I didn't write for like a year because I was like, I still don't want to think about him.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't know much about my dad. He raised my sister and I, but he was very negligent. He was passed out, like more or less nightly, and not present, but absent, like physically in the home, but absent in every other way. And so as it turns out, I didn't know much about him. My mom had died in 2018. My dad had all that moving I was telling you about was a process of cutting us off from his family. So I didn't know anybody to ask about him. So it took me a couple years. I mean,
of course.
It's kind of a long story of how it happened, but eventually I tracked down some people, some sources. I did some reporting and kind of got the goods on my old man.
Yeah. Did you have to? Okay. In that scenario, I would have had to emotionally detach myself in some way or compartmentalize in some very interesting ways, because you're talking about a childhood trauma basically to you that you're trying to write about, but also still be empathetic and curious about the man who caused the trauma. Do you feel like you had to emotionally detach from yourself in order to actually approach the book, if that's okay to ask you?
Of course. I mean, it's all for game to ask about it. It's a very vulnerable book, and so now I feel like I sort of like it's pretty naked. So
it seems like it would be, man.
There's nothing I can't talk about at this point, even though it was very hard for me to summon up the nerve to write about it. Now that it's out there, I think I have more compartmentalization from it now than I did then. I actually don't think I did emotionally compartmentalize in order to write it. I think I mean, man, it was hard. Like this is a short book, but it took me forever to write because it was hard for me to summon up, like I said, the courage, and then just the fortitude to keep coming back to these. I had a handful of memories, and then I had a lot of questions, and the persistence of trying to find people to talk to me. Like my dad's older sister, 8 or 9 years older than him, she made it clear that she didn't want to talk to me. And you don't want to bother this old woman. You know what I mean? Like I haven't even spent much time with her in 30 plus years, much less, talking to her about something she clearly does not want to talk about. And then, other than that, it was just kind of he was just an empty space. But I finally found, my dad had a first cousin who had told me, I will tell you anything I can. He didn't know a lot, but he was willing. He thought it was important to like find the truth. And so he was like, I want to help you however I can. And I went to visit him in the spring of 2023 and tried to interview him. Again, he didn't have a ton of memories. And he's an older guy, and not everything was like coming to mind for him at first. But the next morning, as I was like getting in my car to leave his house, he said, by the way, are you going to look up David Wilson? And I was like, what? Who? He said,
who's that?
David Wilson. Like as you drive, I was going to be driving from his house to in Pensacola, Tallahassee, Florida, to Tupelo, Mississippi that night to be with my mom's family. And he said, on your way there, you should look up David Wilson, who was your dad's old drinking buddy. Like the memory came to him. And so I was like, okay, I think I'll do that. And I ended up pulling over on the way there, Googling him, and finding out that David Wilson was the former magistrate of Louisville, Mississippi. He was a judge in that area for many, many years. And he had just retired the year before. So his number was like not answering, but he was the magistrate. Like people were going to know who he was. And so I went to this little town. And I looked him up in City Hall, and I called this guy, and he didn't answer his phone. I left a voicemail, and I was like, hey, Mr. Wilson, this is Bill Dodd's son. If that name means anything to you, I'd love to hear from you. And he calls me back like within a minute and says, this is David Wilson. And I'm like, did you get my voicemail? And he said, yeah, I just listened to it. I said, do you know who Bill Dodd is? And he said, of course I do. We talk about Bill Dodd all the time around here. And I was like, what? You do? He goes, oh, yeah. Bill Dodd is, he said, oh, yeah, Bill Dodd is a legend in this town. And I was like, what? My mind blew. Exactly. So he and I got together. Yes. He and I got together the next day. And he was my dad's old drinking buddy from college. And then for years after college, well into his 20s and 30s. The reason my dad was a legend, by the way, is that the old timers. So in 1964, Johnny Cash was arrested in Starkville, Mississippi. And there's a song called Starkville City Jail that Johnny Cash fans will know. Local legend in that part of Mississippi is that he was arrested with Bill Dodd. Like my dad was like with him.
part of
and that
it?
they went to jail together. Yes, that he was on the scene. Like, because there was a concert. Johnny Cash played a concert at Mississippi State University, and then the fraternity threw a party afterwards for him. And they
Yeah.
partied with, and my dad, I knew this much was true. My dad, I had told my sister and I, he had once partied with Johnny Cash. So I had heard of that before.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was true or not. But according to the old timers in central Mississippi, they partied until the wee hours of the night. And then when Johnny Cash went out and got arrested for picking flowers in a woman's yard, as he puts it in the song, he was with my dad. He was with my dad, and they went to jail together. I could not prove that. Like, I looked up every city and state jail record I possibly could. I called like historians across Mississippi. I could not figure it out. But I did find a photo of my dad with Johnny Cash on a roadside like history trail marker in Starkville of Johnny at the party, and you can see my dad in the background, and it's in the book. So I got kind of like as close as I could to verifying that. So anyway, that happened, and then finally my dad's sister did talk to me, and she a few days later she really she gave me the gift of telling me about their childhood, at least a little bit about it, and I learned. My dad had an awful childhood, and he was messed up by his mom in many ways, abused. Slept in the same bed with her until he was 15 years old, and and was taught to drink by his grandfather at a very, very early age, like in childhood. And so, you asked about empathy and compassion. I mean, I did not have it until I heard those stories. And then I found that I did. I mean, how do you not,
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So now I still have obviously things to work through, but I do have some understanding about how he became the way that he was.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to learn all this because it's like, I hope curiosity, but not like a curiosity that's filled with like justifications. Cause like, you're not trying to like justify, like, why is my dad a drunk? It's like, I don't want to justify that. I want to understand it. Cause you are still dealing with like the repercussions, the reality of who your dad was. And you can understand him better. That's helpful. Cause it makes him more human. Cause if not, then he's just a monster. Like, for lack of a better put it, then he's just a monster who was negligent, empty space, not there. And you're like, I know my dad is more than this, but where's the freaking key to unlock this so I can understand why he was the way he was? So I'm glad your aunt was willing to talk to you about it, because
me too.
I can totally understand why she wouldn't want to talk about it. Why would you want to talk about any of that? That's not fun to talk about.
No, it's awful. I mean, at one point in the evening, we talked for maybe 45 minutes. And I remember her saying at one point, I'm starting to remember things that I don't want to remember. Like she said, I've been putting, she left home at, I think, 17 years old. She got married and left home as soon as she could. And she put it all away, and the furthest reaches of her mind. And that night she was like, I'm starting to remember things I don't want to remember. So can we stop talking about this, please? And I was like, yes, you have done your job.
Respect.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
Gosh. How's that? Okay. I think in a lot of moments, whenever you're a dad, you realize that there are things that like you're doing because your parents did it and you're just repeating what you know. And other moments where you look up and you go like, hey, I'm going to intentionally not be who my parents were. Like my dad, my grandpa on my dad's side, bipolar, drinking problems. A lot of how my dad raised us was, I just don't want to be like my own dad. Do you feel like as your kids started to get older, did any of those thoughts pop in your head of like, I know my dad treated me like this. I don't want to be that person. Did that weigh on you at all as you started to become a dad and have kids?
It did. I mean, one of the reasons I ever did anything like therapy, and I only dabbled in my early 30s, and then eventually I settled into a practice of like with a spiritual director. But the reason I pursued those resources is that I was afraid that in resenting him, I was going to, accidentally become him. I think that happens all the time. Totally. You know what I mean?
It does.
We become the thing that we hate.
Correct.
Like Luke getting his hand cut off, like becoming like his dad. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like that's a classic story for a reason, right? And so I knew that I was certainly capable of repeating his mistakes. And I resemble him in all kinds of ways, all the things that I hate. My dad, prone to addiction or bad habits. being miserable with money, being afraid to sit down and say who he is. I mean, I'm not all those things, but I have those tendencies, you know what I mean? And I know they're in me. And there's all kinds of all the like silly ways that I'm also like him. I look a little bit like he did at this age of his life. I'm a little hard of hearing the way that he was at this. Like he was really, he had no hearing in one ear, but it was a joke and an annoyance at our house. But now when I can't hear someone, I'm like, oh crap, I'm just like my dad. Like there's like funny.
Him.
Yes, exactly. And I kind of needed to embrace that, and I talk about that in the book. I needed to like say to myself, first of all, and then to you, like to the world, I am Bill Dodd's son, and there's no getting around it. And so I have to contend with that. The one thing I would say that I am not is I'm not negligent. Like I am, like I said before, present to my kids as much as I can be. And imperfectly, but still I intend to be. And my dad was never that. And that is one thing I can say with some self-assurance that has been repaired. You know what I mean? In the transition from him to me. And hopefully that repair continues in my own kids and with their parents someday.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the responsibility you have as a parent, is to hopefully be in tune with the stuff that whenever you were a kid, damaged you to some extent, and then just not pay it forward. Just be like, hey, I know how that made me feel whenever I was a kid. How do I make sure my kids don't go through that? There'll be other stuff that creates deficits, because that's just part of existence and being human. But like, how do I make sure this wound stops with me? Or I feel like this is a not so cheesy way to say it, but like, how do you make sure that your kids know, hey, my dad cared and he was around, versus like, hey, he fell asleep drunk on the couch. Like, this is very different parents.
Right.
I applaud you for writing this book. I listen to a lot of musicians who will write, like post-divorce albums. They just lost a family member or something like that. And I'm always like, Sufjan Stevens did one after his mom died, where she had an estranged relationship with her. And I'm like, you went out and toured this album and played this every single night for like a year or two. And here you are basically doing the same thing of like, oh, I now have to do a podcast in which I bring up my dad, who for most of my life I didn't want to talk about. So congrats on finding the courage to do this and think it's a story worth telling and sharing, because that's, you have to lead with your vulnerability. Like, I've never met you before. You're leading with a very vulnerable element of your life to a stranger, basically, right now.
Yeah. Thank you. There's a lot of models, Sufjan and many others, that I have like drawn on. We went to go see, my wife and daughter and I, and one of my daughter's best friends saw Big Thief last week. The band Big Thief, and Adrienne Linker leads with vulnerability. Man, she like cried her way through some of these songs, and she was like saying, it's not like I always do this, but sometimes these songs get to me. And if you know Big Thief, the stories are often drawing on her family, her mother, her grandmother. She sings about this stuff openly, and sometimes you could tell she's kind of back in, where
conscience,
whatever she accessed to write those lyrics. Is, and I read for the audiobook version of my book. And it was like, I walked into the audio booth and the guy was like, have you ever done this before? And I said, no. He's like, well, I mean, this is true of any audiobook, but especially because of it's a memoir. He said, this is going to be exhausting. Like, just know you're going to be physically wrecked by this experience of reading this. And it's true, man. Like, I was so like 3-4 hours in, I needed a drink and I needed a nap and I needed to
detach and cope in some way right now.
Well, it's yes. And I was like, having a hard time getting through it. And, it took a couple days of recording what is, again, a pretty short book, because sitting in this stuff over and over and over again is exhausting. So in any event, thank you for like seeing that and acknowledging the work that it is.
Because it is, and it is figuring it out. I mean, it's a fascinating courage, because I mean, like, you're not the only one who's had a dad that's been negligent like this, and you've had to figure out how to stop that generational trauma, or whatever you want to phrase it as. But you still have to like, just, it's important to tell the story because it will relate to people. That doesn't make it easier to tell the story.
Yeah. Correct. Thank you.
Well, one of my favorite songs, which I'm a sad music person, is by Nico Case, who was in like New Pornographers. She's fantastic. She had a very strange relationship with her parents, and it's very biographical. It's called Nearly Midnight Honolulu, and it's her standing at a bus stop, and basically the family next to her, the mom just starts screaming, "Shut the F up" at the kid. Like, just has had it. She's done with the kid, starts screaming at him. And like she goes inward and she's like, just so you know, whenever you're an adult, I'm here to say this moment happened because it happened to me also whenever I was a
Damn.
kid. And it's all a cappella. It is like the most haunting thing you'll ever listen to
Wow.
in your life. But also like I'm listening through it and I'm like, so like, because it seems like it happened to you in which like the muse or whatever got to you and it was like, hey man, you have to write this book. And you're just like, I really don't want to write this book.
Yep.
I really don't want to write this song.
Yep.
And then the muse or creative energy is just like, I'm sorry, but you've got to write the second verse now. And you're like, I didn't want to write the first verse. No.
Yes, that you're reading it. You're reading it so well. That was the experience for 3.5 years of working on this damn book. And I kept telling, I told my wife when it was over, when I turned it in finally, I was like, the next time I tell you I have a book idea, I want you to punch me in the face because that was miserable and I never want to do it again.
Yep. Yes.
I want to say though, I just
Go
have to say, Devin, that like, even though there's a lot of sad stuff, it's not a sad read. I mean, you might cry, but in a good way.
Yeah.
But it's also full of humor, and I tried to write a page turner. But the process of working through all that crap is terribly exhausting and scary. So I feel seen by you saying all that you've said. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm mostly saying it because like as you become a parent, get older, you do overanalyze, or I would hope you start to analyze your own childhood. And what you just went through is the reality of doing the work. Like doing the work of understanding your childhood, understanding your parents isn't always this very cheerful, happy thing. It is something that at times you want to run from, but also you feel a need to dig deeper into. And that's reality. So that's more what I'm trying to focus on with that is just like, this is a reality of uncovering your generational, your lineage, basically. It's not always happy stories. It's sometimes you hear about your dad partying with Johnny Cash. Sometimes you remember him not waking up when you needed him on the couch. And both are true. And holding that many realities at once takes its toll. That's all I'm trying to make sure you have a chance to say, you know?
Correct. Thank you.
Of course. So to wrap up, how I end every episode is just to ask every guest 5 questions. They're kind of fun and lighthearted questions.
Okay.
They aren't rapid fire, so you have time to think about them. The first question is, did you have any backup names for your kids? Like, did you have anything you almost named your children?
Our first kid, Isabel Nicole is her name, but her first name was Caroline Michaela. My wife is Michaela. I don't remember where we got Caroline. We were so sure her name was Caroline Michaela that I sent out an email announcement to a bunch of people that our daughter had been born. And so for a few years afterwards, I would have people asking me how Caroline is doing. And I could not remember after eventually like what they were even talking about because it's so my daughter is not a Caroline. Like it doesn't whatever didn't fit her. So that was one. I think for my other kids, Henry Patton is my son. So his first name's Henry. He has my name for his middle name. We talked about calling him Henry James because of the novelist and because my wife's maiden name is James. That's about it though. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, that's fair. Next question. Do you have a favorite TV or movie dad?
Well, George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life is
I mean,
favorite.
sorry, that's just it's teed up. You wrote an entire book about it, which hopefully a publisher is like, how about something lighter, Patton? Do you have anything lighter in those?
I didn't write the book. I wrote a book proposal.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
The book is still out there to be written though, if a publisher wants to buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about George Bailey is that he's actually kind of a terrible dad through a lot of that movie. Like everyone thinks of him as a great guy in the end, but he's a real ass, and he's not great to his kids through much of the film. But when he is restored, he is restored to himself, but principally to his family and to his community, his family within his community, and running home to his kids and putting them in his arms. I mean, I'm going to cry just like recounting it to you. It's so beautiful. Yeah. What I love about that, is just like that vision of a dad who coming home is coming back to himself is really beautiful to me.
Yeah. And what a fun journey. I don't want to get too philosophical. That the road back to you, journeys to self and all that. And that moment of whenever someone gets it and how much purpose they have in existence is, how does that not make you cry? How does that not make you be like, man, you realize you mean something. Oh, how beautiful. And how sad is it that we don't feel that way every single day sometimes.
Correct.
Anyway.
One of my favorite scenes in all of cinema is, and I have a tattoo of this on my calf, is Anton Ego in Ratatouille tasting the ratatouille and like zooming back,
Yeah.
you know, in his memory to his mom's kitchen and remembering, oh,
Yeah.
I'm getting goosebumps just telling you about it. Remembering, oh, this is why I love food. Like I'm not just a critic of food. I was restored by
love
food.
it. Yeah.
And it's like so beautiful. He returned to himself. It's man, it's a great, great moment.
I think your kids might have been too old. Did you ever watch Encanto whenever it came out like a couple years ago?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
That the final song in that where like the real gift is you, like all of that is just like,
yeah.
I can't, I'm done. Then I'm like weeping on the couch next to my kids and they're like, why are you so sad? I'm like, I'm not sad. I'm just moved by the thought of like that much acceptance by a group and a family. And it finally
beautiful.
Connecting with someone is just, how does it, are you guys all monsters? Because none of you are crying.
Well, so crying dad is like that's a whole thing. Like that's just full dadhood to be crying easily.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
At a story.
At the most unexpected moments where you just sit there and you're like, oh, this elicited an emotion I didn't anticipate to feel today. Here we go. Next question. What's your go-to replacement curse word? Like if you want to your kids are older now, so you might not have one anymore. But did you have a go-to replacement curse word?
Yeah, I tend to let them fly, but that's
actually the most common answer. The most common answer is I just curse. So don't worry, you're fine.
I'm sure I didn't when my kids were little.
Yeah,
and I definitely don't drop like the F-bomb as much around them as I do around my friends, you know. But I don't know. I probably would just say a lesser like shit instead of the F word. You know what I mean? Like that's probably the way I would handle it.
You would
they were little.
Would take you would de-escalate it, so it's still a curse word, but not as bad.
Yes, something like that.
Hey, that's fair. I think the purpose of the replacement curse word is like, what I wanted to say was this, but aren't you guys glad I said this instead? That doesn't mean that word's better. It just means it was in the moment.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That awesome. That makes sense.
Yes. Okay. Next question. What's like one of your favorite toys or activities that you do with your kids, or like whenever they were younger? What was one of your favorite things to do with them?
Well, I mean, when they were little, when they were like very, very little to adolescence to now, my favorite thing is being on the trail with them, like just being in the outdoors. Cool. And so that's our thing. I mean, I love hiking and running and snowboarding, skiing. We have a lot of really precious memories around all that stuff. And it's changed over the years. But like at this stage of life, part of what's so great about being in this stage of life, my son and I was in Oregon last weekend, as I mentioned, and it was in part because we had been training for a trail race to do together at 25K. I didn't get to do it because I broke a rib, dude, 6 weeks ago. So I had to stop training, but we still went to it. My son crushed it, did great. And I did a little hike while he was doing it. But those things, being out together in the outdoors has always been the favorite activity for us. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Last question. Okay. Since you wrote a book about fatherhood, this is kind of a big and general question, but you might have an answer for it. If you had advice for a dad, what advice would you give a dad? Like any stage of fatherhood, do you have like a go-to piece of advice that you give to a dad?
I'm going to say the thing that I've been saying throughout this whole conversation, which is be present. Like just be around, like just keep choosing to be around. And, you know, there are stages of life and just seasons of the year where it's harder than others. Yeah. And I would say like, if you mess up for a while, like just go back, repair. Yeah. You know what I mean? I've certainly gone through seasons where I'm distracted or I'm just traveling a lot. Re-entry can be hard after travel. Sometimes I've gone through stages of travel where I'm really, really away while I'm traveling. And I had a dad friend a few years ago tell me, you need to be calling home more. Like you need to be like texting, calling, sending photos, like showing up while you're traveling. And that was a good note. And so, whatever, being present, available, you know, in a way, in a non-overbearing and helicopter way looks like for you, just do that, you know?
Yeah. I agree. And like, now like, there's so many new ways or so many better ways in which you can connect if you're on the road. Where like 20 years ago, you couldn't FaceTime. Where now it's like, okay, I can FaceTime, I can text. Like all your kids probably have cell phones. Like you can text them while you're on the road. It's like, hey, thinking of you. How's it going?
Yeah.
Where 20 years ago or 15 years ago, it would have been more like, cool, I'm on the road. I'll see you when I see you. I'm out. Yeah. So you'd have to like change that habit.
Yeah. Hey, can I give you another piece of advice that's not...
Yes, give me two. Give me two.
Just to say something different since I've said be present so much.
Yeah,
I've been thinking about this lately. I've been talking about this a lot, so it's on my mind. Make your dinner table a place where anything can be talked about.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
that is something that I, again, don't think we've done perfectly, but that we have tried to strive for and are still striving for. Like, make coming home. I had a kid. I had one of my kids say to me, we had a crazy conversation one night last summer, and they said to me afterward, and it was for them, very personal. They were sharing some things. And they were like, we talked tonight about stuff I can't tell my friends about, which is wild because like often it's the opposite as the thing is true, right? I mean, is like there was less emotional and political and whatever risk in sharing some views with us. And the fact when they said that to me, I was like, I don't know. It felt like a achievement level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And so I just think that's something that will serve them and the family, for years on end. Just make your dinner table a place where anything can be said.
And then last thing is just moment for self-promotion. So like, how do we find your book, website, Instagram, all that good? Self-promote yourself.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's on anywhere fine books are sold. It's called The Father You Get and the Ones You Make, Believe in, and Become. It's on Audible. You can ask your local independent bookstore to get it for you if they don't have it already. Ask your library to carry it, whatever. Obviously, the other big online retailers all have it as well. So yeah, wherever you like to get your books, you should be able to get it.
So
amazing.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to go see how bedtime is going upstairs, which is another world that you don't have to deal with anymore. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for letting me hear your story and learn about your life.
All right. Thanks, Devin. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Imperfect Dads Podcast. And make sure to give us 5 stars wherever you listen to us. Music, editing, and production is all done by me. Make sure to tune in on Mondays and most Thursdays for new episodes. This podcast is part of the Never Effaced Network. Make sure to go to neverefacednetwork.com to learn more about them.